Ladies and gentlemen, this is Gender Chronicles. Welcome to today's episode, The Great Abdication. This episode is for all of you gentlemen, wherever you are, whatever you do. Brothers, you often complain that women lack accountability. You're right. We hear you lament that women never own their failures. Indeed, you're right. You say that women always find a way to blame men for their misery. Again, brothers, you're right. But let me tell you something that will shake you to the core. Women are right to blame you. That's right. I said it. Who else must they blame? Themselves? You know they are incapable of that. You know they suffer from accountability allergies. So they are right to say their misery is due to men. The collapse of the family? Your fault? The degradation of society's moral compass? Your fault. The confusion of roles, the dysfunction of relationships, the chaos of modern womanhood? All of it. Yours. They are right. And let me tell you why, gentlemen. Because you were appointed by God and nature alike to lead. You were the ones selected to carry the burden, not just of survival, but of civilization. History bears your fingerprints. You built the pyramids, paved the roads of Rome, and braved the oceans to expand the frontiers of knowledge. You have died in war, bled in fields, worked in mines and prayed in temples. And yes, you were also entrusted with the divine duty of leadership. All sacred scriptures recognize male leadership. From Abraham to Muhammad, from Moses to Jesus, the pattern is clear. Man as shepherd, man as guide, man as guardian. This was not a supremacy. It was a responsibility, a weight, a divine yoke. But at the dawn of modernity, you entered a moment of spiritual fatigue and social cowardice. You laid down the mantle of leadership. Why? Because you listened to the cries of envy from women and feminists who claimed they could be men, who claimed they could be you or a better version of you. You heard women say they wanted your place. They wanted to lead. They claimed they could do better, or just as well. And rather than stand firm, rather than teach, rather than love them enough to say, no, this burden is not yours, you handed over the reins. You decided to simp for them. You relinquished your post and handed it to them. You surrendered your charge. You took the back seat. And what did you expect? What did you think would happen? That the natural order of things would remain intact? That the temple would not collapse when its foundation was swapped for the ceiling? That the family unit, designed around complementary roles, would somehow thrive in the confusion of reversed polarity? You were fools. You mistook surrender for equality. You thought abdication would bring progress. Now look at the chaos, the anomie, the disorder. You allowed yourself to be guilted out of your mission by women and their feminist priestesses, and now the very ones who begged to take your place now curse you for the chaos that followed. Because deep in their bones, deep in their bosoms, deep in their souls, they know that men, yes, you, are the natural leaders in the natural order of things. They know men should be piloting this spaceship called civilization. They know men should be steering the family, setting the moral tone, bearing the responsibility of direction. And when we fail in this, they don't praise our meekness, they despise it. Just as children resent fathers who are too weak to discipline them, women resent men who abandon leadership. They demanded leadership, you gave it to them, but they did not know what they were asking. They knew not what leadership was. They thought leadership was an orgy of rights and privileges. They did not expect the weight of duties and responsibilities that came with it, something you have known for thousands of years. And look now, even as they call for freedom, they mourn the loss of stability. Look at them. Even as they claim independence, they suffer under the weight of isolation, confusion, and disordered desire. And let us not be deceived by the illusions of modernity. Technology has changed our tools, but not our essence. The iPhone cannot replace the father. The app cannot replace the husband. The OnlyFans subscription cannot replace the temple of feminine dignity. Gentlemen, You laugh when women blame you for their misery, but it is you who traded sacred masculinity for pacified neutrality and simping. You are the generation of men who would rather consume than produce, who would rather appease than lead, who would rather entertain than discipline. You say women are selfish, entitled, broken. That is true. They are. But what are you? Gentlemen, you have failed them by letting them run amok. When you date them, when you raise them, when you marry them, you don't tell them the truth. You protect them from it. And you simp, which makes them perpetually petulant and entitled. The men who observe them silently retreat, and those who speak only to be liked. But I am not here to be liked. I am here to speak truth. Because the story of our decline is the story of abdication, of men throwing the mantle of leadership to make women happy. Giving in to feminist demands condemned society to damnation. Gentlemen, let us look back at human history because it is littered with men who forgot they were men. And today, you are following in their footsteps, but with far less courage and far more excuses. The lesson is painfully clear. Every disaster, every collapse, every loss of dignity has its roots in men forgetting who they are, surrendering their duty, abandoning their courage, and betraying their people through silence, blindness, weakness, or cowardice. When Adam stood passive as Eve reached for that fruit, understand clearly, it was not her temptation that broke the world. It was his silence, his surrendering of responsibility, his cowardly refusal to stand firm. Adam allowed the vanities of Eve to sway him, and humanity has paid a heavy price ever since. When Samson laid his strength in Delilah's hands, the tragedy of Israel wasn't born in betrayal. It came from his own blindness, his own abandonment of discipline, letting pleasure cloud purpose, allowing weakness to replace strength. Samson willingly gave away his divine power, and Israel suffered humiliation and bondage as a consequence. When David cast hungry eyes on Bathsheba, a nation trembled and fell, not from the beauty of a woman, but because a king forsook his duty, let selfish desires rule him, forgot his strength, and brought devastation to his people. David lusted after Bathsheba, leading to betrayal, murder, and turmoil throughout his kingdom. But it doesn't stop there. It never does. Look at Troy. Was it Helen's fault that Troy burned? No. It was Priam, an old king who opened his gates wide, too weak to tell his spoiled son. No. Too spineless to say, I will not sacrifice an entire people for your pleasure. Troy fell because a man forgot to be a man. Look at Rome. Nero watched his empire burn not because flames are cruel, but because a coward emperor chose selfishness over service, luxury over leadership, vanity over virtue. Rome burned because a man surrendered his strength to decadence. Look at Tsar Nicholas of Russia, who stood paralyzed as Rasputin manipulated his family. The empire collapsed, not because a mystic deceived them, but because the Tsar was too weak to hold his ground, too spineless to protect his people, too confused to assert himself. Russia fell into darkness because a man forgot his duty. France faced revolution because Louis XVI allowed extravagance and excess to rule his throne. Not because Marie Antoinette enjoyed luxury, but because a weak king lacked the backbone to stand up, lacked the courage to say enough, lacked the discipline to save his nation. Blood ran in the streets because a man abdicated his role. And look at Neville Chamberlain, who shook hands with Hitler, who appeased a tyrant, hoping submission would bring peace. Europe burned, millions perished, not just because Hitler was a monster, but because leaders like Chamberlain refused to confront evil, refused to hold their ground, refused to be men strong enough to say no. If you've made it this far, please support the channel by subscribing and liking. Share the episode with other brothers, and let's change the world one video at a time. Okay, let's continue. Gentlemen, understand this. Nations fall, families break, civilizations crumble, not merely because evil exists, but because good men abandon their duty, forsake their strength, and betray their manhood. You are raising your sons in homes without fathers. You are consuming porn instead of protecting purity. You are bowing to corporate masters while pretending to be free men. You are hiding behind feminism while mocking tradition. You are men in name only. And the cost is not just personal. It is civilizational. When men fall, societies fall. When men rise, civilizations rise. There is no clearer correlation in all of history. You don't need a PhD in sociology to understand this. The fall of Rome, the decadence of Weimar Germany, the implosion of modern America, all began with the corrosion of manhood. And now you sit there and complain. You moan about dating. You cry about hypergamy. You mourn the loss of virgin brides and virtuous daughters. But you fund OnlyFans. You cheer sexual liberation. You make jokes about marriage. You skip church. You dodge fatherhood. And you want sympathy? You were never meant to sit on the sidelines. You were never meant to consume women like products and then lament their lack of character. You were never meant to trade protection for pleasure. It is your duty to lead, to suffer, to endure, to rise, to say no when everyone screams yes, to build altars, not brothels, to cultivate gardens, not deserts. But now the desert is all around us. And still, you will not repent. You will not rebuild, you will not reclaim your divine assignment. What did you expect would happen when you foolishly downloaded to women, to the ones who were meant to be cherished, protected, covered, and adorned? The responsibility to fight, lead, bleed, and bear the yoke of the world? Sure, women demanded all that. They were foolish and you knew it, but you played the fool's game just to make them happy. They knew not what they asked, and they do not know what they do. However, you knew all along, and you abdicated anyway. The most extraordinary dereliction of duty in modern history. She was bound to break. That was guaranteed from the beginning, and you knew it, or you should have known. And when she breaks, the child breaks, the community breaks, the future shatters, and the blame will fall not on the broken, but on the one who let them break. Therefore, gentlemen, for the sake of family, community, society, and civilization, never surrender your role to women, even if they cry for it like petulant children. They are not cut out for it. You are. It's yours to keep and exercise. So stop complaining. Stop whining about the feminists, the liberals, and the modern women. They are too far gone beyond redemption. Don't waste your precious time with them. Focus on what matters. Shepherd your flock. Stop playing the victim. You are kings. Victimhood is beneath you. Rise as the answer. Rise as the prophet, the priest, the king of your household. Rise as the moral compass of your generation. Rise as the builder of altars, not the consumer of flesh. Rise as the man whose back may break but whose will never bends. Reclaim your role, reclaim your honor, reclaim your sacred duty. Because if you don't, they will continue to run society to the gutter. They will continue to ruin what you have worked hard to build for thousands of years, civilization itself. If you don't, they will continue to resent you. They will resent the softness of your voice, the absence of your discipline, the disappearance of your spine. They will hate you for laying down your balls, for letting them castrate you. They will resent that when they looked for a man to lead, you were too busy watching TikToks. So, gentlemen, this is your moment. This is your warning. This is your fire. Stand up or step aside. History awaits a new breed of men. Men with brass balls. Not passive spectators, not spineless collaborators, but architects, disciplinarians, protectors, priests, builders. or continue as you are, and be buried under the ruins of a civilization you were too cowardly to save. The choice is yours. But understand, so is the blame. Thank you for tuning in. Please support the channel by subscribing, liking, and commenting. Share this episode with other brothers, and let's change the world one video at a time. See you in the next one.